With existence of global value chain, the trade flow, if you look at a country's trade flow, right, it can be a little misleading. A very famous research was done by some economists from the Asian Development Bank who traced, the production and the export of the 3G iPhone, which is assembled in China, okay, and exported from China to the United States. So the export value of the iPhone, okay, is like something like $190. However, if you look at how much value added, Chinese workers have put into contributing to the production process, it's actually little over 3%. A country like China who exports a lot, but the value added share is very small, not really benefiting as much as you would think, from international trade. My name is Xiao Jiang. I'm an assistant professor currently at Denison University, and I got my PhD from the New School for Social Research. And after that, I spent 1 year working for the ILO, the International Labor Organization. In the past 4 years, I've been consulting for the International Labor Organization, the World Bank, as well as the ASEAN Economic Research Institute. When we think about international trade, we think about countries specializing in producing and exporting final goods. However, with the existence of global value chain, countries, instead of specializing in producing and exporting final goods and services, they tend to specialize in particular production segments. A manifestation of the importance of global value chain is the existence of, is a vast volume of trade of intermediate goods and services around the world. In a work that I have done with my co-authors, we were able to discover a very, very interesting phenomenon. That phenomenon is what we call value-added erosion. Okay, so what is value-added erosion? So if you think about total export, we can always decompose the value of total export into 3 components. You have to produce the export as output. You have to have domestic intermediates, foreign intermediates, and domestic value added. Right, that's the value of your output. With existence of global value chain, right, and with prevalence of global value chain, especially in the past few decades, what we observe is a constant increase of foreign intermediate share. So foreign intermediate taking bigger, higher share of the country's exports, which is given, which is, not, except for few exceptions, that's a global trend. Okay, the question is, if a country's import intermediate share has been going up, what's going to happen with domestic intermediate share and domestic value-added share? There are 2 possibilities. One possibility is that when a country is experiencing higher foreign intermediate share, domestic intermediate share declines. And this phenomenon is called domestic and foreign, is what we call domestic and foreign substitution. So in response to increase of foreign intermediate share, domestic intermediate goes down. Some country, in response to the increase of foreign intermediate share, instead of having decline of domestic intermediate share, they have the decline of domestic value-added share. And this phenomenon is what we call the value-added erosion, which means domestic value-added is being eroded by the increase of foreign intermediate. A typical country that goes through domestic foreign substitution is India, whereas China is a country who went through the value-added erosion. Why? What determines that? Lots of global value chains tend to have very asymmetric power structure, whereas you have foreign lead firms enjoying vast amount of market power on top, oligopolistic or monopolistic power. The small domestic, lower tiered firms tend to face fierce amount of competition. When a country engages in global value chain, it's very likely that foreign lead firms will tend to try to specialize in very high value-adding activities, such as financing, advertising, product design, and marketing. Right? Whereas the actual production process has been subcontracted to small manufacturing firms in developing countries. From a developing country or poor country's perspective, I'm exporting goods and services that is finally assembled in my country. I would experience a value-added erosion, okay, if the foreign value-adding activity is being expanding over time. Essentially, what we did in our work is that we're able to use a modeling framework and apply that to an international database, global input-output database, and extract the high-skill labor content embodied in each country's import content of export. Through an econometric exercise, we found out there's a stable relationship between foreign high-skill labor embodied in a country's import content of export and value-added erosion. Over time, if a country is having more and more foreign high-skilled labor embodied in its country's import content of export, the country is very likely to experience decline of domestic value-added share. So essentially, what this manifests is really a distributional conflict within global value chain. The question is whether should a country engage into global value chain or not. A country should consider engaging into global value chain, but in a selective, careful, and intelligent way, not blindly. If a country decides to participate in global value chain, a set of government policy have to complement the country's participation in global value chain. For example, the government should take a look at what kind of import intermediates I'm really importing. If it's high-tech goods and services, sure, we should encourage that, because with high-tech foreign intermediates, it's likely that we're gonna benefit from the technological diffusion, right? But if the foreign intermediate takes on the form of advertising, product design, financing, then we have to be a little careful about it, right? Because I don't see how those type of foreign intermediates are gonna help technological diffusion domestically. I propose that with existence of global value chain, just like labor unions, should also, form some sort of small manufacturing unions, because lots of time the distributional conflict really comes from the asymmetric power structure. So by forming small manufacturing unions, they will be able to actually negotiate, counter the asymmetric power structure better by having more collective bargaining power. And also, we need labor protection, especially in country that is heavily specialized in the labor-intensive, low value-adding segments of production. Labor workers are extremely vulnerable in those countries. But ultimately, I think the solution of this is industrial upgrading. Countries need to think about how to upgrade themselves within the global value chain. Slowly, hopefully, they can capture more and more value added within the structure.